Oh, what's the is it X-Files where it goes chung chung? No, it's for you. Where it goes chung chung.
You got this serious face.
Wait.
You're just making me laugh.
Digby Scott. What's on your mind? That was really good. You didn't say it, but it was really good. I'm sorry.
You look like a lost puppy. Go, I'm ready.
Professionalism. Okay. What's on your mind?
Cathedral Projects. So I've read 2 books in the last 3 weeks. Both of them mention this idea of Cathedral Projects. So what's Cathedral Project? It's this kind of legacy idea, right? And the great quote from a guy called Stephen Nachmanovich, he's a violinist. He says, if we believe in long sweeps of time, then we'll build cathedrals. If we operate from fiscal quarter to fiscal quarter, then we build ugly shopping malls. Right? And I really like that because it's just like this short-termism thing. And I've been chewing on this idea, what's a cathedral project for me? Why do we need them? And where I'm sort of landing, there's a bit of a tension. That I reckon there's not enough people talking about the big cathedral projects that we need to be doing as a result of all of this opportunity, right? That's happened in the last couple of months. I don't think there's enough.
No, we're shovel ready. Cathedrals aren't shovel ready.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dig some holes. Let's make some stuff.
Fill them up again.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, I think there's a risk of when you're too grandiose, you kind of miss something. So I'm sort of, as I was coming here today, I was thinking there's this tension I've got going on. But that's what's on my mind. It's like, where I'm at in that continuum right now is I reckon we have an opportunity to think way bigger for New Zealand. And remember we talked about leadership in New Zealand being the leaders of the world and all this. And I just don't think there's enough of that in the public discourse right now. Big picture possibility.
What's holding that back?
I think people are just striving for, can I just relish the normal and the day-to-day mundane that I haven't had for a while? I reckon there's a bit of that going on because it's easy and there's kind of like there's grooves that we know that we can follow. And man, we've had to think and work really hard over the last 2 or 3 months. And I think that's a risk. So I'm just like, I
agree.
And I've just run a session, come before today, a webinar, with a bunch of leaders around, my invitation was, what could your cathedral project be? And after I got them to talk about it, we didn't really talk about their cathedral projects, but I asked them this question. I said, what did that conversation do? Because I got them to work in groups. And it was really interesting. Unleashed massive amounts of energy.
Possibility thinking.
I've got a whole lot more of a domain I could be thinking in now.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the fact that you're trying to nail it down, but it's more, again, the process of the conversation.
So I think that's really hard because I think short term's like, hello, here I am. I'm very, very heavy. I'm very, very here. I'm going to get you. You can't even handle me.
Did you say heavy?
Very heavy.
Okay.
Very heavy, like just weighty. The short term is weighty and immediate.
I have gravitas.
I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
And I'll just pick on councillors again, but what I often say to politicians is why this job is so hard is because you are measured in the short term.
Absolutely.
But the impact of your decisions, you won't know if they're good ones for 15 or 20 years.
That's right.
So it's like parenting.
Really hard.
If you screw it up, you know quite quickly.
Yep.
If you get it right, the lag time for you seeing any payoff or benefits is really long, and it's really hard to do something that's got a very long payoff.
Absolutely. I remember talking to the MD of Chevron back in Perth years ago, and I said, how do you measure your success? He says, really hard, because everyone that works here, the thousands of people that work here, he goes, they can measure their success in days or weeks or even months. He goes, he's got to think in 5 to 10 year time blocks. Yeah. So how does he measure whether he's a successful day or not? And he said it comes down to his values. Did I live my values today? And did I contribute to the bigger picture in some way? And again, it has to run on some sort of faith, some sort of belief, as opposed to measurable nailing it, right?
No, I disagree. And so I think because I just would, because I'm back
'Cause you
to
do.
what's the system and what's the rule. But we incentivise a particular kind of performance, and we incentivise it by the way we structure projects and the way that we write job descriptions and the way that we do performance development and with
10-year of roles, right?
Right. So
CEO.
with politicians, we say make decisions for 100 years in the future, but we'll measure your success in a 3-year election cycle, 4-year election cycle. For chief executives, we say set this company on the path to success. You've got a 5-year review with a 360 in the middle. With middle managers, we say collaborate for impact, and then we measure based on business unit financial indicators from the last quarter.
Absolutely.
We have an absolute mismatch, but we don't have to.
No, we don't have to. It's interesting looking at some massive projects, right, and what keeps them going over generations.
Yeah.
Isn't
like a cathedral.
Like
for
a
example.
cathedral. But you've got to keep momentum for it, right? Unless there's enough public willingness to keep this thing going. And I reckon that's where the leadership piece is coming in. It's like, how do you inspire people to say, no, this is too important not to carry on with? And I reckon that's the trick, right?
And how do you embed an idea so that even if you're hit by a bus, the idea has its own life?
Absolutely, right.
Because that's what makes a cathedral project into a project.
Yeah.
It can't be one person.
Exactly. And there's something about the removal of the ego too, because I reckon you're incentivized by the short term, right? Yeah. But what if the short term really, that wasn't your driver? It wasn't your driver. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm incentivized for that, but actually what I care about is something that's beyond me. Now, how many people do we see thinking that way?
Possibly not enough.
Not enough.
So if you're thinking about your bigger impact, your bigger picture, your legacy, what's your cathedral project? And how are your short-term pressures and incentives getting in the way of you thinking bigger about how you can create a movement that inspires, how you can have an idea that's got its own legs, how you can have an impact, not just now, but in the long term? I'd love to hear about it.
Sure would.